Hello, my name is Mark Hunter. You may have attended one of the many contractors licensing or continuing education classes that we've taught.
Two items we discussed heavily in the course have to do with breach of contract issues, and approximately 90+% of contractors who are signing contracts are in breach of contract. And two, insurance coverage exclusions, which about 60% of contractors have insurance policies that exclude what their scope of work is. This is what we call fake insurance. Here's a quick example of a contract that I just reviewed for a subcontractor today to demonstrate breach of contract issues. Under the workers' comp section, they required a waiver of subrogation. They were not providing that. They had the contractual liability obligation. Oftentimes this requires broad form. They were in breach there. Property damage coverage. They were in breach there. This is a common exclusion in every policy. The version of the insurance form, this required coverage for subcontracted work, and this particular subcontractor had a subcontracted work exclusion. This included a requirement to have no exclusions for subsidence. This subcontractor had subsidence. This required a no exclusion for mold. This sub had a mold exclusion. This requires the subcontractor to additionally insure the owner. They did not have a direct contract with the owner, and as a result, their insurance policy endorsement for additional insured requires contractual privity. So they were not covering the owner correctly as a result. Breach of contract. The year version of the additional insured endorsements. Contracts often require earlier versions that are broader, and the contractor, the subcontractor, does not have that early of a version in their policy, and so they would be liable for the deficiency. For example, this version requires a subcontractor and their insurance to have a duty to defend the general contractor, even if the general or the owner are at fault. Why should the subcontractor's insurance additionally insure the contractor or the owner for their own negligence? That's what this requires. They had additional insured for ongoing operations, but they did not for completed operations. Breach of contract. They did not have the correct waiver of subrogation that extend to not only the contractor but also the owner. They required all of this to be in place through the statute of repose, which in most states on average is 10 years, and they failed to do that, so that was a breach of contract. So if an occurrence happened years down the road, there would be no coverage protection to that additional insured party. Breach of contract. The type of auto coverage that was required, they were in breach. They were not additionally insuring the owner and the contractor correctly on the auto. They did not have the full $2 million limit on their umbrella. Breach. All of these endorsements required to go to the contractor as well as the owner. Breach of contract. Oftentimes they will require a 30-day notice of cancellation on all of the policies. They were not providing that on any of the policies. Breach of contract. This is a special endorsement that you have to add to the policies, and some insurance companies are unwilling to provide that endorsement. This required the subcontractor to waive all rights of subrogation in favor of the owner and the architect as well as the contractor. They don't have direct contracts with the owner, the architect, their agents, officers, directors, employees. That's a breach of contract, and it relates back to contractual privity. And finally, this provision required the sub to require his sub-tier subs to have all of these same provisions in force and in place. And if they didn't, they're in breach of contract, and of course, they were in breach of contract. So there were 22 breach of contract issues for this subcontractor just in one contract, for one job, and just in the insurance section. This is a huge problem. My experience doing this over 30 years, 90% of the time when a contractor signs a subcontract agreement, they're in breach of contract. The best time to negotiate a contract? Before you sign it.
Most business owners never really read their insurance policy because it's so complicated. You may get a basic overview of coverage here, but then who knows what's taken away over there. If you work on residential or multifamily projects, your insurance should not contain a residential or multifamily exclusion. You could also have a problem due to the type of work you perform. For example, if you're an excavator or a landscaper and your policy contains the common soil subsidence exclusion, you've got a potentially serious problem. Have you had your policy audited to ensure compliance? ComplyCheck is a cost-free, no-obligation audit of your insurance policies and project contracts. This audit is performed by a construction, risk, and insurance specialist who not only looks at insurance exclusions and coverage limitations, but audits the agreements that you and your subcontractors sign. This is critical because the limits and exclusions of those performing work for you could impact your company or violate agreements with your owners, upper-tier contractors, or even your own insurance company. ComplyCheck is a quick and easy 3-step process. First, we will conduct a 15-minute interview to learn about your company. Then, you provide copies of your insurance policies and subcontractor agreements. And finally, one of our experts will analyze the data and identifies potential concerns. You will receive our exclusive detailed summary explaining your exclusions and limitations in simple terms, plus a certificate of completion. You can provide this certificate to an upper tier contractor or to your customer to demonstrate good faith compliance. Should we uncover potential concerns, with your authorization, we will work directly with your insurance company to fix the deficiencies. We'll negotiate on your behalf to eliminate exclusions that cause non-compliance and exposure to you. Don't pay thousands of dollars for a compliance review. Don't rely on an insurance agent who just wants to sell a policy. You've worked hard to build your business. ComplyCheck is the solution. This easy 15-minute review could help save your livelihood. You've got nothing to lose by taking advantage of this limited time offer. Take a few moments to fill out the contact form today.